The dead are meant to rest in peace, but peace is fragile. When the living disturb what should be left alone, the forgotten, the wronged, and the restless will always find their way back. I'm Blair Bathory, and welcome to the Something Scary podcast. Thanks for joining us as we descend into the darkness.
So, want to hear something scary?
Follow the dead. Sometimes the lens doesn't just capture a moment, it captures what's already waiting for you. Like in this tale based on a true story. Iris had always been drawn to the quiet, the spaces no one looked at twice. She captured weddings, parties, and local events. She was always fully booked, but never felt satisfying enough. She longed for something deeper, maybe something taboo. Then the call came from a small, high-end mortuary, offering her a job photographing funerals. It was well paid and peculiar. "You need to have a delicate eye," the receptionist said. "We need someone discreet, someone who can see the details others miss." Iris didn't hesitate. She liked noticing what others overlooked. Despite her schedule, she made her way to the house. It sat on the edge of town where streets dissolved into forested paths. Inside, the family waited silently. The casket lay open in the center of the living room. The man inside looked ordinary at first glance, but Iris noticed his eyes. They were unnaturally wide, staring past her as if she weren't really there. She raised her camera and took the first photo. The shutter clicked. Piercing in the hush, Iris frowned. Something about him spooked her. She just couldn't name it. The photos developed like any others, crisp and sharp, but she noticed subtle distortions at the edges, tiny smears, faint streaks that weren't there when she clicked the shutter. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. She told herself she was tired. That night, the vase from the funeral appeared on her kitchen counter. She hadn't carried it home. A faint scent of lilies lingered, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. She rubbed her eyes and told herself she was imagining things. The second funeral brought a young woman, delicate and pale, her features unnervingly symmetrical. Iris photographed her carefully, mindful not to intrude. But when she developed the prints, she noticed something different this time, a subtle condensation of shapes, as if the air around the body had shifted between exposures. Shadows stretched, leaning closer, pointing just beyond the frame. She cleaned her lenses meticulously, but the effect persisted. Days blurred into nights. Every morning, Iris found a new token from a funeral. An untouched candle on her windowsill, a single rose tucked behind a book, a photograph she didn't remember taking. Each one a quiet reminder that the more funerals she photographed, the closer the dead were lingering. Closer than she wanted to admit. Still, she followed the work. She had to. There was a rhythm in the deaths she documented, a hidden pattern she couldn't yet see. One evening, developing a photo of a man she barely knew, she froze. The image showed a narrow path through the forest near her apartment. Lining it were figures, pale, silent, eyes fixed on the lens. They beckoned. Each step had taken since beginning this work seemed to lead her here. Iris stared at the photo. Her fingers trembled. Outside, the wind rattled the window. For a moment, she thought she heard footsteps behind her. She knew she wouldn't go. She knew she shouldn't go. She wanted to leave the camera, quit, forget the photos, but an irresistible pull drove her forward, deeper into the darkening forest. The path was quiet, though the trees loomed closer. Shadows stretched unnaturally, even in dusk. Figures from the photographs appeared between the trunks, pale and unblinking. Their gestures were deliberate, hands extended, faces still. She felt their gaze follow every step. Her heart raced. When she tried to turn back, the path seemed to twist, as if the forest itself guided her. She realized she wasn't just following the dead. They were following her. The clearing opened suddenly, unnervingly still. The air smelled faintly of earth and iron. In the center lay a single photograph. Her hand shook as she picked it up. It was her, standing in the center of the clearing, camera in hand. But her face was wrong, edges doubled, blurred, something unnatural lurking beneath the image itself. A whisper brushed her ears. Not words, just a sensation of inevitability. She lowered the photo, and the figures had drawn closer, forming a perfect circle, hands raised like the images. Her camera slipped from her fingers. She bent to retrieve it, and the clearing seemed to ripple. She felt herself lifted, though no one touched her. Light fractured, reality splintered. Another photograph lay on the ground, face down. She flipped it over. There, sprawled in her apartment, was her body, eyes wide, staring past the lens. The wind whispered through the trees, almost gently. She understood. The dead were not just guiding her, they were claiming her. Every step, every photograph, have led to this. She tried to run, but the path behind her had vanished. The figures closed in silently, merging with shadows. The forest swallowed her. When neighbors peeked inside her apartment hours later, her body was gone. Only the camera remained, lens still pointed toward the doorway. Authorities developed the film. Each blurred corner, each shifting shadow became more disturbing in sequence. The last set contained a single image, the clearing, empty except for the camera, waiting. Sometimes, if you wander the forest near her apartment, you might hear a faint click of a shutter and wonder if the dead are still waiting for their next subject. I've always thought photography freezes memories, preserves life, but Iris's story makes me wonder if it can do the opposite. Can a camera pull the living closer to the dead? When you capture a face, a moment, or a shadow, are you just recording it or inviting it in? Have you ever felt like something unseen was watching you, waiting for its turn in the frame? Speaking of signs, I have seen a lot of them this year. In particular, I have been seeing birds. I brought that up a couple of weeks ago, and I finally figured out the meaning of those. And it's really interesting looking back. I have photos and notes taken of that time, and for them to align with what I eventually found out is really freaky. I've also started having day visions, which I've never experienced before. Not to get too heavy, but I've had a lot of rough things happen to me this year, so I don't know if my third eye is finally open because of all the experiences I've been having, or because I'm just getting older and more aware of things. Either way, I've been seeing a lot of signs, and let me know in the comments what signs you see often. Angel numbers, butterflies, birds, let me know. I'd love to hear it. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees. No BS. Here's why I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for $15 a month. I saw that all plans come with high-speed data, which I need, and unlimited talk and text, which I definitely need, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your own phone number along with all existing contacts. And I use the service, y'all. I've had it for about 2 years and I seriously love it. I cannot recommend it enough. I'm very, very serious. It's great. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/scary. That's mintmobile.com/scary. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month, limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plans. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Sometimes the dead don't just leave us memories, they leave us instructions we aren't ready to follow. Like this encounter shared by Alicia. I was 8 when this happened, and it has stayed with me every day since. I was born on all-call, the amniotic sac still covering my face when I came into the world. In Caribbean culture, this means you're said to have a special connection with the spiritual world. I was also born on November 1st, All Saints' Day. The first day of Dia des Mortis, a day when the veil between the living and the dead is said to be the thinnest. If it weren't for everything I've experienced over the years, I wouldn't believe the superstitions, but I do. And this is one of the reasons why. I was raised by a single mother and had two older sisters, twins, who were already old enough to be somewhat independent when I was born. Before I arrived, my mom had hired a nanny to help with them. She became part of our family almost immediately, and we lovingly called her Nana. Our new house, where I was 8 when this happened, was only a 5-minute drive from her nursing home, so visits were regular. Sometimes she'd come with us. Sometimes she stayed behind. Every Sunday, I went with her to church. I loved the quiet of sitting together in the pews, the way the sunlight painted her face. Eventually, Nana developed a tumor on her neck. Doctors couldn't remove it because of her age, and she slowly began to fade. She lived for about 6 months after the diagnosis, but during that time, I visited her at the hospital nearly every day. The hospital was only a 20-minute walk from our house, and I would sit here with her for hours, holding her hand and listening to her stories, even when her voice was weak and raspy. The day she died, my mom had planned a special trip to a water park for me and my brother. My sisters were away at Army Cadet Camp, so the house felt emptier than usual. I walked back from the hospital that morning carrying Nana's hand in my memory and felt an unshakable heaviness in the air. That night, I made a bed on the floor of my mom's room. I had always been prone to strange dreams when someone close to me died, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. My mom was on the phone with my dad discussing funeral arrangements. She was trying to decide whether to tell my sisters about Nana's passing immediately, knowing they would miss the funeral if they stayed at camp, or wait until I returned home. I was half watching TV when I caught it. Out of the corner of my eye, a hand slowly wrapped itself around the edge of my mom's bedroom door. I froze, blinked, looked directly at the doorway. Nothing. But then, glancing again from the corner of my eye, the hand was still there. It was pale, thin, and trembled slightly, as if it were trying to remain unseen yet insist on being noticed. A chill ran down my spine. I screamed and jumped onto my mom's bed, crying. She didn't question me. She had seen enough of my strange experiences over the years to know that I wasn't imagining things. She whispered a few words, asking whatever spirit it was to leave me alone. Then, almost deliberately, the hand extended one finger and pointed, not at me, not at my mom, but across the hall toward my sister's empty room. My heart raced. I whispered, I think that's Nana. She's pointing toward Rochelle's room. My mom paused, then asked me to repeat it. I did, my voice trembling. She nodded slowly, hanging up with my dad, and immediately called the camp to request my sister's leave. The hand remained at the doorstep that night. It didn't move again, but lingered, pale and silent. A reminder that someone, or something, was watching over the house. When my sisters arrived, the funeral went as planned. The hand never appeared to me again that night, but I felt it, the faint pressure in the air, the subtle drop in temperature near the doorway. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still there, waiting. Weeks later, life returned to something resembling normal, but I began noticing strange things. Small objects in the house were ever so slightly out of place. A photo of Nana tilted, a chair shifted, a light that flickered when no one was near. Sometimes, in the quietest moments before sleep, I thought I saw a pale hand, just beyond my vision, retreating slowly into the shadows. I realized with a cold certainty, the hand had never truly left. It wasn't just Nana. It had been her at first, I think, guiding, protective, desperate to ensure her family stayed together. But what lingered afterward felt different. Its presence was heavier, darker, almost expectant. It seemed to watch, waiting for something beyond my understanding. The warmth of Nana's hand had been replaced by something colder, something that reminded me how close the dead can stay, and how little control the living have over them once they choose to linger. Even now, decades later, I can feel it sometimes, a slight chill in the air, a fleeting shadow at the edge of my vision. I've learned that the dead don't always leave when you expect, and sometimes following them is not a choice but a necessity. Some nights, I wonder if Nana's hand ever really guided me, or if it was something else entirely, watching, waiting, following the dead, never truly gone, only patient. Wow. After hearing that story, it's hard to ignore the thought, when someone has passed on, are they ever truly gone? Or are they still watching, guiding, waiting for the right moment to make themselves known? Have you ever felt the presence of someone who should be gone but somehow isn't? What are the signs you have seen? And now it's time for something from our listeners, and this week I wanted to share an email from Tasia. Hi, my name is Tasia, and I have a true story for your podcast, which I love and listen to every day. Thanks, Tasia. When I was about 12, I lived with my mother in this old Victorian-style home, the kind where the floors creaked like they were speaking to you. My parents were going through a rough divorce, so I spent most of my time in the back room. My cousins and I were very much into horror and would play games like Bloody Mary, Candyman, and Charlie Charlie. Though they always fell short, I had a crappy phone my dad bought me from Walmart for emergencies. I didn't use it much. It barely ran games, but I still tried to find something interesting. I was with my brother at the park on a cloudy, kind of cold day just down the road from our old house. That's when I found a ghost hunting app. I thought it might be a fake, but I downloaded it to see if I could scare my little brother. We walked around and laughed at the cheesy ghost and the backstories it came up with. I left it on my phone and didn't touch it much after that, until one day I was cleaning through untouched apps and stumbled upon it again. Bored, I opened it and looked around through the cracked screen until it stumbled upon an all too real looking figure, unlike the usual PNG images the app had used before. This one looked like a real person, a lady. White ragged dress, long blonde hair stained red. Her name was Laura, and the description said she died in the 1800s, killed by her husband after she found him cheating. I was unsettled, but closed the app and deleted it. Then things started happening. My red paint would be missing from the drawer when I went to grab it. My bed always seemed like a mess, but I chalked it up to my brother being a pest. Later, I was talking about the history of the house with my grandma, who had owned it for years. She mentioned an old owner, a girl named Laura, who passed tragically. I felt my blood freeze as I begged her to describe her. She hit every detail of what I had seen. I tried to find the app again, but it was nowhere to be found on the App Store, like it had never existed. I've since moved on with my dad, and I think she followed, because in the dead of night, when my insomnia hits and I lay there staring at the ceiling, I swear I hear the desperate sound of sobs coming from the crawl space under my floor. Whoa. Thanks for sending that really scary story, Tasia. I've never saw the app, so I can't comment on that. But if you've seen it, let me know in the comments if you've used this and you've had any weird experiences. They say
Dia de los Muertos.
it's a day of love, a Mexican holiday, when the veil between the living and the dead grows thin. But if you forget to honor those who came before you, they might just remind you of themselves, like in this family story sent by Luis. When the dead come home to visit the living, if we remember them. But if you forget them, they might not forget you. Marcos didn't care much about that kind of talk. He was 17, bored, and always glued to his phone. The traditions his abuela, Rosita, loved so much just felt outdated. Her house smelled like copal smoke and sugar. Her altar took up half the living room, candles glowing in front of photos of people Marcos barely remembered. "Come light a candle for your parents," she asked. "Why?" he mumbled without looking up. "They're gone, it doesn't matter." Rosita never scolded him. She'd just whisper something soft, something that didn't sound like Spanish, and let it go.
When Dia de los Muertos
came that year, Rosita woke him before sunrise. "You're coming with me," she said. "We'll visit the graves." Marcos groaned, but went anyway, mostly to stop her from nagging. The city was alive with color, streets lined with papel, piquito, music echoing, people dancing. Everyone seemed happy. Marcos felt like the only one who didn't get it. At the graveyard, Rosita built her altar, candles, bread, sugar skulls. There were photos of her husband Jose, of Marcos' parents, and an empty frame. Marcos pointed to it. "You forgot one." She shook her head. "It's waiting." "For who?" Her eyes stayed on the candles. "For someone who's lost their way." He rolled his eyes. "Creepy." Rosita began to pray in a language she didn't know, low, rhythmic, almost like a song. Marcos backed away, scrolling his phone. That's when he saw his friends Diego, Lalo, and Val across the street, waving from a small restaurant he didn't recognize. Finally, something normal. He texted Rosita, "Gonna go grab food, be back soon." She didn't reply. The restaurant looked half abandoned, paint peeling, windows fogged, candlelight flickering inside. Still, he went in. The air was warm but stale, like a place that had been closed up too long. "You sure this place is new?" he asked. None of his friends answered. They just smiled very widely. A waiter appeared with a tray. On it was a single sugar skull. It was perfect, bright white with black and red paint, Marcos's favorite colors. Across the forehead, written in looping script, Marcos. He frowned. "Okay, that's weird. Who did this?" Nobody spoke. Then Diego reached out, grabbed the skull, and smashed it against the table. It shattered into pieces. The others began eating it slowly, crunching, like it was nothing strange at all. Marcos's stomach twisted. "Guys, stop!" They kept chewing. He blinked, and the faces around him weren't faces anymore. Hollow sockets, grinning teeth, the candlelight flickering through their skulls. Marcos stumbled back, knocking the candle off the table. The flame hissed out. Darkness swallowed the room. A soft sound filled the dark, like bone fingers drumming on wood. The waiter returned, carrying a tray with 4 small coffins. He set them down in front of Marcos, one by one. The first creaked open, his mother's face pale and still. The second, his father's mouth slack, eyes gray. The third, his grandfather, a rosary clenched in his brittle fingers. The fourth was empty. Then words burned themselves across the lid, letters glowing red like dying embers. Marcos. He screamed and bolted. Chairs toppled, skeletons rose, their bones clattering as they followed him. He threw open the window and stumbled out into the night. When he turned around, the restaurant was gone, just an empty lot full of weeds. And then he saw her, Santa Muerte. Tall as a shadow, wrapped in crimson robes, a scythe in one hand and a glass orb swirling in smoke in the other. Marcos froze. "You eat what is meant for the dead," she said, voice low and echoing. "You mock their gifts." Marcos cried, saying that he didn't, that it wasn't him. "But you looked away." The blade gleamed silver in the moonlight. "Run home," she whispered, "before midnight, or your grave will not stay empty." He ran harder than he'd ever run before. The streets were silent now. No music, no laughter, just the echo of his own footsteps. When Rosita's house came into view, every candle on her porch was burning. He burnt inside, gasping. "Abuela!" he yelled. "You won't believe what—" She already knew. She stood at the altar, her shawl draped over her shoulders. Her eyes were tired with wet tears. Abuela, he said, panting. I saw her! Santa Muerte! She said. Rosita didn't look up. She was lighting a new candle in the empty frame. Only it wasn't empty anymore. It held his photo. "Abuela?" he whispered. The candle flickered once, twice, then went out. Rosita's hands trembled. "I told you not to leave," she said softly. "The dead don't like to be forgotten." "Stop, please! I'm right here!" But when Marcos glanced toward the mirror behind her, his reflection was gone. He reached for her hand, desperate, and his fingers passed straight through. Outside, wind swept through the marigold petals on the path. They lifted, swirling upward like spirits returning home. And when the sun rose the next morning, Rosita's altar had one more candle, the one that never went out. A year later,
Dia de los Muertos
came again. Rosita was older now, slower, her hands shaky as she built her altar. She placed photos of her husband, her son and daughter-in-law, and one of Marcos. She lit the candles, murmured a prayer, and whispered, "May you rest, mijo." But upstairs her phone buzzed, a text, from a number she hadn't seen in a year. "On my way, abuela. Don't start without me." She stared at the screen until the message faded. Then the candles flickered, all at once, though no wind blew. And if you look close, just for a second, you could see a shadow move behind the picture frame. And they say
Dia de los Muertos
is a day of love, a day when the dead visit the living. But sometimes they come back for more than just memories. Because once the lady in red marks your name, you don't just remember the dead, you join them. It seems like Marcos learned a late lesson, that to respect the dead isn't just tradition, it's protection. The altar is more than candles and flowers, it's a promise to remember. But tell me, when your name is finally placed on an altar, will it be because you're loved or because you've been claimed? You can send us your own spooky encounter or untold true crime story at SomethingScary@Snarled.com. And subscribe to our YouTube @Snarled so you never miss an episode creeping your way. And trust me, you don't want to miss a thing. Until then, sweet screams.
This week's podcast stories were edited by Sarah Lukasiewicz, narration by Blair Bathory, audio edited and mixed by Calvin Linderman, produced by Fitz Harris, executive produced by Gail Gilman, music by Sapphire Sandalo and Calvin Linderman.